Blogtalk Radio.
Welcome, everybody, to the Lighthouse. This is from the Sacred Embers Network. We're starting a new format tonight for Friday night shows. There will not be any readings done on tonight's show. This is a roundtable discussion. Several panelists from the Sacred Embers team are joining us this evening, and we will be doing this every Friday night. A nice open table discussion on various topics, sharing experiences, learning and growing with one another. This is to help support everyone and help answer some questions they may have in their spiritual journey. And also, it's Friday night. Who doesn't love to sit down with good friends, have a good conversation, and end the week with some nice, relaxing, enjoyable company? So we're very glad to have you all with us tonight. On tonight's panel, we have Laura Onarheim, Tina Godin, Kathryn Peoples, and myself, Shannon Johnson. We have several of the other team members that may be stopping by as well through our chat room as well as on the air. For our callers and regular followers, we invite you to call in, ask questions about the discussion we're having, share your experiences, and see how you can join into the conversation. We're so glad to be launching this for the Sacred Embers Network, and I'd like to go ahead and welcome our panel to the show tonight. Tina and Laura are already with us, and Kathryn will be with us in just a moment. Hi, ladies. How are you doing?
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Go
ahead,
Laura.
Doing really great. I'm really excited about our topic tonight, and I'm really loving just to have a girls' night and to bring this to, our followers and everything. It's just really good for everybody to have a chance to learn and relax and have fun. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love this platform, for this evening. It's totally relaxed. We're going to be talking about a discussion and, just sitting back, kicking back, and, offering some inspiration and, just chat away. And we hope that the listeners will, chime in, and call as well if they have something to, add to the conversation. That would be lovely. And I look forward to it. So I think this is great. I love sitting with you guys and just kicking back and have a nice chat.
Definitely.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
awesome.
so excited.
Yeah, it is exciting.
Yeah, and, Tina's really an amazing teacher as well, and really look forward to hearing Shannon. We always call Shannon like the encyclopedia. I don't know if she knows that, but we always say, oh my gosh, Shannon's like the encyclopedia. We love to chat and listen to her. So I'm excited to have these two. And when Kathryn comes, oh my gosh, her resume is insanely, she's so talented. So I'm really excited, guys. This is going to be great.
Awesome. Yeah, Shannon, we do call you that, the encyclopedia. But it's amazing. It's amazing. You're just, you have so much knowledge and information. And it's just awesome because whenever we have a question, we always, go to Shannon and ask something. So she gives us a lot of wisdom. So we really are grateful and appreciate that. And Laura, you're fabulous and amazing yourself. I mean, my goodness, I just love listening to you on the other shows as well. And, and I learn from you too. So I think it's reciprocal. I think everybody learns from one another. And so I think that's lovely and that's great too, so yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool.
Nice thing to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
it's
I
a really
think
nice
what's really
thing to have with the team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Laura.
What I've noticed has been really amazing is our team has a private chat that we talk in, and it's like when we start talking about topics in there, having all of these like psychics, mediums, spiritualists, like life coaching people with all this knowledge in different areas, like when we all put our heads together, the conversation is really like enlightening and we learn a lot from each other. So to be able to bring this to our listeners, I think that's going to be exciting for them as well, because they don't really get to see the cool stuff that happens behind the scenes. So it's going to be really fun.
Right. Absolutely. And everybody has something special about them too, so it's pretty insane. I mean, the things that we do say in our chat and what comes out, and as you said, when we all put our heads together, it's like, oh my goodness, just the energy too, and it's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yes, we've all had different experiences with our spiritualism, with coming into it, with our abilities. Some of us have been doing this for many years, and some of us are much newer to it. So it's wonderful that we all really set our egos aside and help each other learn and grow and share some of our stumblings that have happened. I had mine before there ever was internet. Trust me, it was not as easy back then. So I love having this format to be able to share that kind of stuff with our followers. And plus, they'll get to know us a little bit better, too, through the different topics we discuss. And speaking of topics, ours tonight is a fabulous one, and I think it suits tonight perfectly since this is a launch of a new format for us. And it's accepting change and releasing fears. And I love that Tina brought this up for our first show because I think it really hits all of us in so many aspects of our lives, whether you're just starting to work with abilities or whether you're not working with them at all. We all struggle with change, but we also are constantly changing in our own bodies. So change is a part of life, but it can also be very scary. And some people, it can actually cause them to, kind of hide in their holes, disappear from life, disengage from others because of the fears of change that can come along. So this is a fabulous topic to start the new platform for Friday night with. I'm so excited, ladies. This is a good one.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we all, nobody is, I guess, immune to change. It's the inevitable, right? And so we're constantly coming up, I don't want to say against it, but with change. And and as you said, Shannon, it could be from, spiritual changes to anything going on in our personal life. There's constantly a change happening. And so when we can learn the tools and the skills to learn how to embrace that and take it as it comes, it can suppress, I don't want to say suppress, but kind of soften, I guess, the fear where it's not so scary, where the anxiety doesn't creep up. And so, it's a perfect topic, I think, for us to dive in and talk about. And, a lot of the listeners and the people that are going to be listening in the future can, learn from our own experiences and how we've, navigated through that. And so I think it's really important to, to discuss that.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think is, like, one of the most defining moments in your life that you came up against fear and just embraced it and went right through it? Like, if you guys could think of, like, just one time that sticks out. I got deep.
You want to go first, Tina, with that one?
Yeah, that's a tough one because there's so many. I guess I could categorize it so I can think about if I want to, if it's a spiritual fear, I'll put it in that category, or if it's a personal fear. I'm going to start with the personal one, and that was in my own life. This one was a big one. This one was a really big one, and that was about, let me think now, close to 10 years ago. I was at a point in my life where my marriage wasn't working out. I had two little ones who were only 14 months apart, so I had two in cribs. Maybe it's a little bit longer because, let's see here. Yeah, maybe 11 years ago, 12 years ago, that time frame. And so, I ended up getting a divorce at that time. I had to put my house on the market. And I had a 1.5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, okay? So one was just about transitioning into a toddler bed at that point. And I just remember, when this was all happening, it was extremely, extremely scary, lots of changes. So I was no longer, married. I had to sell my home and move. And then I was a single mom of two little ones and one who was severely autistic. And so it was a lot. It was very heavy. And I certainly was scared, and certainly I had a lot of concerns, how was I going to make enough money? How was I going to parent, my two daughters? How am I going to deal solely alone? Especially with the challenges of autism, how was I going to, navigate through that? How was I going to help my daughter to progress as well, and with all the services that were involved? How would they, feel about not having two parents together? There was so much. It was just endless. And but I knew that, it's kind of like, and at that time, although I was connected to spirit, I just thought everybody was at that time, and I really, just put my faith and trust and surrendered. And I just remember just praying to God to carry me through. And, there was so much growth with that change. And so I feel, in going through all of that, I had to learn so much as well on my own. And it made me extremely independent, extremely self-sufficient, extremely strong. And I know today why I went through all of that experience. And I'm very, very proud of my daughters. And I'm proud of myself too, just because I never thought that I could overcome, let alone the insurmountable amount of fear that was associated with that. But I learned a lot of love out of it, and simplicity, and it's changed who I am today. So I feel that big change and that loss of fear, just enabled me to have more faith. It just enabled a lot of things within myself, and it actually made me feel whole again. You would think that it didn't, because there's so much going on, so much loss and grief, but it had such an opposite effect. It's pretty interesting to say the least. But in looking back, it's amazing. So that's a big one for me.
Wow, that was really
definitely
awesome that you were able to do that. Wow.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it.
Go ahead, Tina. Go ahead.
And I think too, when you have a support system around you, that is something very big too. I think that was very helpful, and so it's really important to be truthful in what your needs are, your expressions, and to build that support system for yourself. You know, that's just one of the tools that I think about on embracing change and losing fear.
Wow, that's awesome. Definitely.
Yeah. Mine's kind of similar to Tina's. I'd have to say the biggest fearful one, and like you, Tina, is like, okay, which one do I pick?
Right?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of like, wow, when you look back, I mean, I'm 51, and I look at the years and go, there's quite a few of those lined up, aren't there? Mine was somewhat linked in with my spiritual awakening. I was married and had been in the relationship for 10 years. My daughters were 3 and 8, and I had been doing meditation classes with a mentor and all of this stuff going on, and my first husband just could not grasp it. I mean, it scared him half to death, especially when I told him that my father had been showing up every night talking to me for hours for a month. That really kind of flipped him out a little bit. What do you mean there's been a ghost in our bedroom? You know? But then I had, while working with my mentor, she was like, you realize it's time for you to end this relationship. And I was just kind of like, huh? What? And she's like, yeah. Spirit saying, it's time. You've been living a life that isn't serving you. You are the servant to everyone. And I just kind of sat there in shock and going, oh, I'm in trouble now. You know, and I'd have to say from my mentor, it was one of the best readings I had had, but at the same time, it was one of the scariest. I was living in Las Vegas. I had been there for 3 years, and I had not worked in the town, and it is a town that you got to be connected to people. My parents had moved out there, luckily, to be near me and my girls, and here I was going through massage school, going through now a separation and a divorce. Didn't have a job. I was left with $20, car payment 2 months past due, no job, and rent due in a week. And I had to move into my parents' home with my 2 kids. Scared to death. What was going to happen? How was I going to do this? How was I going to pick up all the pieces and keep my girls in a steady flow of a positive life about all the changes that were now happening? Because I said, okay, Spirit, I'm going to be strong enough and do this. I'm going to be strong enough and do this for me, for the girls, and for my husband, because it wasn't working for him either. It was easy, and it become the job. We were kind of like a business partnership at that point, and I had realized through the messages that I really needed to step back and take my power back in who I was and teach that to my children as well. I wasn't giving them a good role model because I was being very subservient and handling everything so that everybody else stayed happy and I was miserable. And it's really scary when you're in a big city that you've never worked in, you have nobody that you really know in the area. And thank goodness my parents had moved out there so that this could happen. And yet, you know, it was just kind of like I got a job a month later at a new hotel that was under construction. And I was just like, yes, first step. You know, there's your first step. You're making it. You're going to be okay. And in the same time, you know, you're coaching your children about all of the changes that are happening now in the family and about having to listen to your happiness, having to listen inside and see where you need to go and what even when you're scared to death because you don't know if you're going to be able to put a roof or food on the table, you know. And I just kept listening, and I kept taking one step at a time. And, you know, I lived with my parents for a year and a half with my 2 kids. I finished massage school. I was working full-time in a career that I wasn't exactly happy in because I had to go back to accounting. But all those changes, it was just a whirlwind of life, and you're just trying to survive at the time. In retrospect, as scared as I was, I am so glad I did it. I overcame my fear one step at a time. And my girls have even told me, I mean, they're grown women now, and I've asked them, you know, look, I know Mom is not perfect, and I have screwed up many, many times in raising you guys. I'm human. Okay, that's it. But about that decision, are you guys glad that I did that, even though it was such an upheaval and we were all scared? And they've told me, Mom, best thing you ever did for us. And I was just kind of like, wow, okay. And they're like, yeah, no. There were rough times, but seeing you do that and watching you have to take each step and really work past your fear for us, I said, you know what? Life ain't so scary anymore. Because you kept going, Mom, and you didn't let it defeat you. And I was just kind of taken aback by that and went, wow, I had no idea. I thought I really did a humdinger on you guys. You know? But it worked out, you know, and that fear I could have stayed. I had a couple of opportunities that he was just kind of like, just forget all of this and let's just go home. And I kept saying, no, one of us has to be strong enough for all of us. And if it's going to have to be me and you want to hate me for the rest of my life, I'm okay with that because I'm going to be strong enough for all of us, no matter how scary it is. And we made it. We all did. He's doing better. I'm doing better. My kids are doing amazing. So that I would have to say was probably the scariest time in my life of having your entire world just like, whoosh, yep, all right, that's gone. Where do we go from here? You know? What about you, Laura? Which one have you had so far?
So for me, it's been a lot of like health issues that have held me back, that have caused anxiety. So I've always had hypoglycemia, and I have always had vasovagal syncope. And both of those, the hypoglycemia, I passed out with that. And then with the vasovagal, I passed out, and that can be anything can make me pass out. Like if I laugh too hard, if I breathe too heavy, like, so there's a lot of like loss of control that happens with that. So that happened to me when I was young. I started, passing out a lot, and then I just had so much fear, and a lot of the fear made it so I wouldn't be independent. So I would rely on people all the time. Like my mom was a nurse, so I would rely on her to the point where I felt like I just wouldn't be able to survive if I was alone. Like I wouldn't be able to go anywhere. I wouldn't be able to be around anyone because I was afraid people would take advantage of me if I passed out in public or anything like that. So I just had this insane fear of blacking out and losing control my whole life because it would just happen so often. And like when I tell you guys I passed out, like it's not just like you black out and you just like you wake up. It's like when you pass out the way I do, it's like your blood pressure drops, your heart slows down, like everything. You just literally feel like you're dying. in that moment, you're just like, I'm dying. I need to go to the hospital. Like, your body just knows. And it's really scary. So it just caused so much fear, and the fear turned into anxiety, panic attacks. And it got to the point where when it was finally time for me to grow up and move out of my house and get my license, get a job, all of those things, I couldn't do it. So I found myself stuck, relying on my parents, not being able to do anything, and just literally feeling like I was in prison. And I would see all my friends have a life. I would see my brother and sister have a life, and I knew I had to conquer that fear. So, you know, with the anxiety that came from that brought on a lot of other things that just snowballed. You have that fear that turns into panic, and then you're always thinking, what if? So you don't even do change. You don't even think to take the step. You're always just kind of like, you don't even feel like you have the key to unlock yourself out of the prison. So I think the biggest thing for me was getting my driver's license, and that was huge because I wasn't able to get my driver's license until I was like 24 or 25. Like, it hasn't even been that long. And I did that after I had my child, which at that point, it's like I had so much loss of control, so much non-independence. Having a kid really changed my life. It kind of made me like, I need to take control and like move on and break through the jail, basically, that I had put myself in. So another thing that ended up happening with that is I ended up getting IBS from the pregnancy. Like, the pregnancy messed up my body too. So it was like I just kept racking up. And, you know, our friend Ryan, he would always say, if you hold on to anxiety and you hold on to stress, then you create more problems. And I'm being reminded that's one of the symptoms that happened to me was the IBS. So with the IBS and the vasovagal syncope, that was a trigger. So if my stomach started getting weird, I'd pass out just from that. So it was a huge, like, a lot of people are like, oh, they just get their license when they're like 16 and it's all good. It's like not an issue. But for me, it took me a long time because I was constantly afraid, like, what if I like felt like I had to use the bathroom doing the test and then I'd pass out and all this stuff. I went to therapists and they were like, try to do this or that. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't get out of the prison. But eventually I finally, later on in life, just went and did it. And when I was in that driver's test, I was like hyperventilating. I was seeing colors, like I was going to pass out. I knew I was going to pass out, but I just had to work through it. I just had to breathe and work through it and just get it. And I actually failed the test like 3 times. I had the universe wasn't giving it to me that easy. I had to go through it 3 times. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I just didn't stop because I really wanted to break out of the prison. And finally I got it. And the kind of like stress and anxiety that this would give me would be like, I wouldn't even be able to sleep knowing the test was tomorrow. Like, I would be like freaking out. So when I finally passed the test, it was like the biggest, like somewhat like a skyscraper on my back, like just tumbling off the ground. And like, I just felt amazing. So to be able to do that, I was able to overcome a lot of other obstacles where I felt stuck and I couldn't do things alone. So I bring that up because even though it might not seem like that big of a deal to some people, to other people it is, but it's your thoughts that can really hold you back. A lot of times facing the fear isn't as scary as it would be for you to just stay in what I call the jail cell of just not having a life and just being completely unindependent and just miserable. So for me now, even though it's really hard and I still pass out and I still have a lot of anxiety and issues, I just go through it. I just go through it, and it's liberating. It's liberating to do it, even though it's really scary and I might get sick. It's liberating to just do it. So that's what I have to say.
Awesome.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And Kathryn has been able to join us. Kathryn, are you there? Can we hear her? Let me try the other one. Kathryn's number's coming up twice, so let's see.
I'm here.
Kathryn.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Now we
can
can
hear
you.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you. So look, I feel like the timing of this topic is just so synchronistic because in terms of embracing change and releasing fear. So my youngest son, was just diagnosed with a mental issue that includes psychosis, and it's something that I was just thrown for a loop, didn't see it coming, and so I guess let me just start by saying, like, initially, I'm thinking, we can't change people or events like that are outside of our control, right? And I'm trying to think about how this applies to my son and what we are going through, not only him, but as a family, because when one person's affected, the whole family's affected. So, like, the one thing that I decided was that, I can only change my response to how, this is all playing out. And so, other than the little treatment that he's gotten because he won't go to treatment, it's just a crapshoot right now. And he's so bright and he's so smart and just a great person. And to see this, my son, change before my eyes, he's unrecognizable. And so, it's hard to look at change as a positive. So I guess I'm coming to this in a different, like the opposite way right now, because for me, it's hard to look at this as a positive, like, where's my power here? I have all the power in terms of, like, what I do with myself, but, as a mother, like, what do I have to learn from this? What is this teaching me, right? Is this his life contract? Like, what is this teaching me? And, how is this helping me? Like, is this an opportunity for me to evolve as a person? Like, I look at myself as a good mom. I tried my best, let's put it that way. And I feel like I am a very good person, and I help a lot of people with charities and whatnot. But now I'm finding it difficult to help my own son. So this is really, when you talk about embracing change, I am embracing it the best that I can. But it's not always easy all the time, I guess, So what I have decided to do is there's a lot of prayer involved. There's a lot of, there's research. There's a lot of opportunities, for instance, that I found, for him. It's just he's not willing at this time to do them. So basically, I hand everything over to God because that's, I can do my part, and that's it. And until I figure out a different route or he decides to move forward, I feel like I'm not alone in this, where we just do our best, and we do our best, and we have to be accepting of that. And there's no shame in that. We don't have it figured out right away. So
yes, even being a medium, you can't see some of that stuff, especially when it's directly in your life, because you're a part of the play that's going on. And it's a really hard place to be in. It's a hard spot, especially when it's our kids.
Oh, my gosh, I know. So as far as, like, releasing the fear, which is the other topic here, I try to focus on the good every single day. And every day I wake up, wishing and hoping and praying for a miracle. And again, there are good days. Don't get me wrong. There's, but, again, this is definitely a change.
But it's just, I guess facing fear of a future, again, for like what that means for him and us as a family, me as a mom, what does that mean? But again, I do look at life always in a positive light, and I do believe that things happen for a reason, and it's okay not to know. Is the bottom line too. It's okay not to know, and I'm very prayerful. And like I said, I do turn everything over to God, and and just go from there. So
that's true. Sometimes that's all you can do, is literally let go and give it to God.
Right.
And I think, and my guides are saying right now, sometimes that's part of the lesson, letting go of control.
Right.
Yeah.
I can be quite controlling.
Huge one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having so many kids and being the oldest, I feel like I've always ended up in that role anyway. So it is hard to let go of control. But I'm learning that I don't always know best when it comes to some things. So you only have, that's why I am very spiritual, and I pray all the time, and I bring in the angels, and, I always feel that he is protected, even though he's going through whatever he's going through. So that's a good thing, and that helps me feel better about him as well. So we shall see. But I have high hopes. Yeah.
You'll end up being on the other side of it, this whole blossom of things that will come out of it that you didn't have any idea when you were in it, in the moments of it. It's amazing.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that holds us back with the fear is the what if. And I know people that are, but what if? And they're afraid to make moves and decisions in life because of this what if. And my ex-husband was that way, but what if? And I used to tell him, but what if it's these other good things? You're not going to know until you get through it on what those what ifs are going to be. Because what if can hold you back, and use the term Laura used, it puts you back in the jail cell because you're so afraid of something unknown enough that it's crippling you from making any move in any direction, so you've jailed your own self.
Right. I'm in that what if stage. Because if my plan is to move to my beach home and set up shop here, and which is where I'm at right now. But the what if is, what if I do go? My son doesn't come with me. He stays where he is, which is his father. Even though we're divorced, we live together, and they don't get along, and it's just. My ex-husband legitimately doesn't know what to do. And for him, it's just avoidance is best, which is opposite of how, I have been dealing with this. So I don't want him to be alone, my son. I want, even if he doesn't want us around, I still want him to know we are around. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
but
keep going.
But well, I was just going to say, and also in terms of embracing change, just living with my ex-husband, we went through a divorce from hell. I mean, from hell, and then we just decided, was really me initially. She just decided that, you know what, this isn't just hurting us; it's hurting our kids. It's just, I just saw the devastation that whole divorce was causing, and although I definitely lost a lot of money in that divorce, I didn't care at that time because I just wanted peace, and a peace of mind was so much better than a piece of property to me at that time. And we started to talk and become friends and all those things that were, we couldn't live together as husband and wife. Those things didn't bother me anymore because I decided to embrace that change of he's not my husband anymore. We're divorced, so it's a different type of relationship, and I made that work. Like, it was not easy, but like, I made that work, and I have to give him credit too because he was part of that change as well, and things got better, and as a result, we're able to live together, the way that we do. And now that our son is having difficulties at this moment, it's even more important that we stay friends and, come together, if nothing else, just, for the betterment of our family. And that has worked out. But that was a give and take, and that, wasn't always easy. But I felt like I let it go. Like, that was one of the only times they ever couldn't say, like, I actually let something that big just go. I don't have to, worry again, like the things I used to worry about, because, again, I chose to put myself in a different spot with him. And it did work out for the best.
That's really good, Kathryn.
Yeah, thank you.
One of the things I can tell you, with my child, it's been really hard. It's a similar situation. It's different, but I'm split up with my ex, and my child has always shown signs of being transgender, like since they were like 1 and could start, expressing themselves. And
right.
My ex totally against it and just wasn't having it. And I wanted to be proactive and support my child and do everything I could, to the point where I was kind of miserable like you are, trying to control the situation, like all the research, what can I do? And, just racking my brain and trying to get everybody in line and try to get everything right. And it just got to the point, someone gave me the advice of, this is your child's path. Whatever happens is going to happen. You have to remember that they're a soul. They're not helpless. So all you can do is be the best you for them. You can't control the ex. You can't control what happens with your child. All you can control is yourself and being the best mom you can be for your child. That's all you can do. So, yeah. And that helped a lot.
Yeah.
Hearing that, I was able to, stop going in circles trying to get people to be supportive, trying to get all these, doctors and therapists and all this stuff, trying to prevent something bad from happening in the future, when all I have to do right now is just be a good parent to my kid and let them know that they're supported, because that's all you can do. And then also know that, they're a soul, so they might be younger than you right now, but, how many lives have they had? Their soul is very powerful, and their soul is wise, so they're not really helpless. And this really could be part of their journey, their life path, their life lessons. So sometimes letting go of the control and just focusing on you is the best thing for them.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Just put out
and we have,
but no, you're right.
Kevin has joined us on the air as well. Hi,
Yay.
Kevin.
Okay.
Yay,
Kevin.
Running a little
Thanks,
bit
Laura.
late, but I made it.
Awesome.
We're glad to have you on the show with us tonight, Kevin. Would you like to jump in and share something to the conversation?
Oh, sure, definitely. I think this topic's right up my alley. I kind of grew up with my father was the type that he always was kind of like a perfectionist when it came to doing anything, and no matter what I did when I was a kid, it was never good enough. You know, he might be bragging up to somebody else about how good I would do, but he would never tell me. So I used to have a big fear of always doing something wrong because I would get jumped on if I did something wrong. So for the most part, most of my life, whenever it came to doing something new, I always had a big, huge fear about screwing up all the time. And I was always hard on myself about anything. And I also grew up in a religion that didn't believe that God and the angels would talk to humans because we're not worthy. So when I finally woke up at about age 25, I had a bunch of beliefs that, you know, this totally went against everything I knew, you know, the new path I was taking. So I fought it tooth and nail. You know, I just didn't understand it. But, yeah, I always had a lot of big fears about doing anything because I never thought it would be good enough for anybody. So, and
Wow.
the same thing when it came to the work, I fought tooth and nail because I was an angry person for about probably 35 years. And I fought tooth and nail against anything that was good for me. The people that had my best in heart in mind for me, I would argue with them because I was happy being miserable. But yeah, most of the things I ever did, you know, I was always afraid of trying something new because I would screw it up. And I was kind of programmed that way. So it made it quite a challenge to go through the transition.
Yeah. Look at how far you've come.
Well, it's taken me, you know, 45 years to learn to be happy, you know, and to quit being angry at life. And, you know, I'm just now getting to the point where I'm comfortable with everything, you know, but it was worth it. You know, the whole journey's been worth it. So,
yeah,
a lot of lessons.
The important part is that you're here, right? And that you are happy.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right? And less angry. Yeah.
When I learned to quit trying to please everybody else, that's when the path became a lot easier. But I had a lot of people that, you know, stood in my way. The area I grew up in, anything metaphysical, it's a very highly religious area, mostly Catholic, and anything like metaphysical or along that lines is considered evil, taboo. I mean, Satan worshiping is what I've been called, you know, many a times. So it makes it tough in this area to even have a chance to go any further because the judgments that used to fly my way, you know, that's one of the things that I really had to deal with. So I just kept it quiet. And when I hit Sedona, I moved down there. I was down there for about 11 years. And to move into an open community where you could actually be yourself and talk about it on the street, to me, it was heaven.
Wow.
But that's where I got most of my learning and education. So
I love that. Wow. I can relate to you, Kevin, because I grew up Catholic. I don't really consider myself Catholic because of just what you're saying. And anytime I try to really bring up all the paranormal experiences, the metaphysical stuff, and all the everything that really happened, I was greeted with resistance as well. And so after that, you just stop sharing things because either they just think you're nuts or they genuinely just don't understand, even if they try, you know. So to find a community that's just, well, like our community here, right? But to find a community where you've been for you said 11 years, that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's why I was so happy to find the group now with Sacred Embers because I've been running solo for about 6 years up here, and I know I'm holding or anchoring vibrations, energies into this area to try to lift up the vibrations of the area. But it's tough because if I even mention it on the streets, you know, people who have tried to open metaphysical shops up here do not last very long because there's such a stigma against it. So, but yeah.
Where I live, it's a lot like that, Kevin. I mean, I have probably 5 churches less than 2 miles away from my house. A very, very religious area. And when we first moved here, my girls were scared to death. They were telling me all the time, Mom, you can't tell people that you talk to dead people. You can't tell them the things that you do and your little witchy ways and stuff. You can't do that. We'll have people burning crosses and protesting in the front yard, you know? Because they, well, you know, the first day of school here, I mean, we had moved in September, so of course they had to get right into school. And here they came from Vegas. My girls were born in California. They only knew very open areas that were very open-minded, didn't really care. And they came home after the first day of school, and they were like, Mom, we don't know how to answer this question, but we got hit with it all day long. What church do we say we belong to? And I was just kind of like, just tell them, you don't have one. Your family allows you to decide your belief system. But they were very, very afraid of anybody finding out what I did and the things that I dive into and stuff. They were scared to death of the public knowing around me, around us. Because here they were hearing, you know, well, if you don't do that, you know you're going to burn in hell. And for an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old at the time, they were just like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
My poor youngest one, she came home and she was just kind of like, what's this whole burning in hell thing, Mom? I don't know what's going on. You know?
Right.
And, you know, but we had to have a lot of talks about what I do and the things that I explore. And anytime they came to me with a question about a belief system or something someone told them, you know, I always tried to address it from all the different religious perspectives and bring it back around to, well, this is what Mom believes, but you're still developing. So be open to whatever feels good to you, and you choose your belief system. What feels good to you? And that really helped them kind of step away from the fear that others were projecting onto them and start to take their own power back. And then they got to the point that they would just turn around and tell people that, well, you know, I really don't have one, but I have things that I believe in. I don't have a religion for it. And that to me was amazing, just to give that to them. But the area itself is so deeply, deeply religious that it really created such a big fear. It was surprising. And I still run into people to this day that are kind of like, they'll come to me because they got told by somebody else to come see me, and they're like, but, you know, I can't let my family and my church know that I'm talking to you. You know, and you're like,
right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Well, with my story, I grew up in a religion that there was only 12 members in our church, and the church I went to didn't celebrate Christmas or Easter. It didn't believe in it, you know. So when I started school, immediately I got bullied, and, you know, people were all over me about that. So I can relate to what your daughters have gone through. I went through the whole time I was in school until I hit high school before people quit busting my chops about it, you know. So it was quite a challenge. So, but yeah, it's nice to be out of that cage.
I can't even imagine, like, you know, I recently came out as a psychic medium, and, like, we're in a pretty progressive time where a lot of people are, you know, pretty accepting about a lot of things that are different. I still got nervous, so I can't even imagine how some of you who are, you know, more mature than I am, coming out in some of those days where all you had was, well, I would think Sylvia Brown and Cleo on TV, but maybe before that, I don't know. But, like, now it's all over, you know, but back then, maybe not. How was it back then when you guys were going through your psychic medium world? I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to explain it.
I feel so old right now.
Sorry.
Thanks, Laura.
Well, what made it interesting for me was when I was young, at age 4, I tried throwing away all my gifts to save my life, because I grew up with an abusive parent. And I got hit in the head with a 2x4 and lost my hearing in my left ear when I was 4 years old.
gosh.
That was the point my soul said, that's it. And I basically cut myself off from love. I cut myself off from God. Going to church, I never felt anything, I'm glad I went because it taught me good morals, and it's good to be educated in the Bible and that. I definitely never will regret that. But being an empath on top of that was the only gift I seemed to hang on to. And then going through all the harassment, all the puts downs, just being singled out. And I actually grew up hating Christmas because of the way I used to get treated around Christmas, because people just couldn't understand it. So, but yeah, it was a mess because, anything that wasn't of a religious background or church was evil. And that's exactly the label you would get, and that's how you would be treated. And for a kid, that is just a little bit too much. I'd hate to see anybody's kids go through that.
Yeah. At what point
when did you go through yours,
say
Tina?
enough? Yeah. I'm sorry.
What's that?
What was
I didn't hear you.
Oh, I just asked Kevin, at what point did you just say, enough, I'm done?
Well, when I was about 25, I always had an interest in the psychic abilities. Any book that I could find in this town, which was very limited at that, I would try to find the information. And when I hit about age 25, I started waking up, and I ended up going out with two of my friends to the reservation about around midnight one night, and I had waking visions with the two other gentlemen that I was with. And
wow.
I ended up having a naming ceremony. And, after what I saw that night, there's no way I could turn my back on it. Once you start down the path, you can't go back,
Wow.
And I was given the choice to stay up here and work on the reservation or go out west. And as soon as I decided to go out west, I injured myself at the job I was at, had to move to Tennessee, and it was when computers were first coming out in chat rooms. And I ended up connecting up with a group, and I went to a gathering up in Mount Shasta, and that's what started me on my path. But that's, it took me that long to get to that point, I guess. So,
yeah, that's interesting, though.
But if you can picture, people's beliefs being strong enough to where if they even hear it, they think, oh, man, they think like The Exorcist. They came out back then. And all of a sudden, everything that isn't anything that they knew, they feared. And, they unloaded on you about it because they were going to save your soul.
Right. Well, that was just what they were taught, this cycle. But that sounds like it's very tough. Yeah.
Before the internet, it was not easy to get into your abilities unless you happened to find someone else or they found you. For myself, I was fortunate. My mom had left the Catholic Church before I was born. So when I turned 14, I was living with my father in South Carolina, and she was doing all this exploration and getting into physical stuff and everything without the rest of us knowing. And when I went to visit her, she took me to a spiritualist church for a flower reading. And that was my first exposure to this side of the world. And I was just like, wow, this is really cool. Not realizing I had always had my abilities showing through. I used to have a lot of premonitions and a lot of deja vu, but I wasn't recognizing it. And when my mom finally moved to Vegas when I was 30, she was like, "Oh, we've got to find a little spiritual church around. They usually have a day that they do, like a 10-minute reading for a donation. We got to find one." I was like, "We're in Vegas, Mom." You're asking me about a spiritualist church. Okay. And we actually found one in the newspaper back when we still used newspapers all the time. About 1997, and she found one stating that, the second Sunday of every month, they did, or it was second Saturday of every month, you come in, you give a $10 donation, and you get about a 10 to 15-minute reading from one of the mediums that was there. And so we went. And the first time my mom and I went, my poor dad in spirit was having to bounce back and forth between the medium she was sitting with and the medium I was sitting with in a totally different room. And both mediums afterwards, we found out from each other, kept saying that, "Why does he keep disappearing?"
Funny.
Popping in and saying something, and then he'd disappear. What's going on? So from that moment on, Mom and I decided we can't do a reading at the same time. We have to do it separate, but not at the same time. And my abilities just, boomed at the age of 30. And luckily through this church, one of the ladies was like, "Hey, I do a meditation group every Friday night. It's a $5 donation. You come in and you join she guides you through a guided meditation, and she also watches everything and gets messages while you're doing it, and then afterwards you do a share session and everything. You guys should really come." So my mom and I started doing that, and this woman ended up being my mentor. Thank goodness. And I got to work with her for about 3 years. But, before the Internet, you had to really tread carefully. You didn't really put it out there very much because you never knew the reaction you were going to get. When you walked up to somebody and you're kind of like, "Are you feeling funky today? Because your energy is just looking totally off." You couldn't do that. You could do it today, but you couldn't do it 20 years ago. They would just look at you and be like, "Yeah, okay, I'm going over here in the other room." This crappy lady is walking up to me. So it was really difficult. You had to seek out books, and you had to seek out people that were already kind of, luckily my mentor, she was in her 60s. She'd been doing it for years, so she was very verbal and very open. But you really had to seek them out, and it was difficult, too. And, part of our topic is the changes in the fear. It was fearful to have to try to, kind of find out where somebody was at, and is this the right person that I should talk to about this? Because I have these things happening. Who am I going to talk to? And for me, I'm the youngest of 5 kids. My siblings are so closed up, not axing their stuff whatsoever. And so I couldn't even talk to them of "Hey, do you get any of these weird things?" It just wasn't available.
Right.
Having the access we have now through the Internet, through having shows like ours tonight, it is so incredible. It is such a gift to be able to help others when those of us that, started this journey before it was available to have in this type of venue, it was a struggle. And it was scary because if you said something to one person they're kind of into this stuff, you never knew which extreme you might get. Or if suddenly they're going to pull into a religious doctrine on you and flip, because I've had people flip. And you're just kind of okay, all right, I'm leaving as fast as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that because in this town, if you didn't fall into their norms, it was really hard to even get a job because word would get around this town so fast. And I was sitting here laughing, trying to think the first time that the word empath was used. I think it was like in the 90s or something. I never knew what an empath was, and finding information before the internet was literally just about impossible unless you knew where you could get the books or, who you could contact. It was quite a challenge to learn anything, and it was hard to find explanations for whatever you were going through, at least for me anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Same here.
the
Was yours
first time
before or after the internet?
It was a little bit of both, because I just remember being young. I remember being the age of 4 and having experiences with spirit. My mom, though, she was extremely supportive and spiritual herself. So as I grew up, she would explain to me what was happening, what was going on. And so I did have, she was an encyclopedia as well of knowledge. So I did have that. Then there was a point of time where I didn't, I didn't do any, I got scared. When I was a teenager, I wanted nothing to do with it. And, so I just shut it off, so to speak. And it wasn't until, years later. And then the internet was out at that time. And so I already knew some of the, I guess, terminology and what it meant, but, just from the help of my mom. But it wasn't until after the internet. So that was very helpful. I mean, I can't even imagine you guys, trying to find that book or, speaking to someone that is on that same level with that same belief system. That's got to be really hard too, to have that support. So I can't even imagine. And so now it's so easy. You just Google something online, if you want to know something. Mm-hmm.
Well, I spent a lot of time in the chat rooms as soon as the internet was up, and I lived there because that's where you could find people. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, different groups and
Yeah.
Yeah, that was back in the day when most chat rooms were pickup spots. You really had to weed through, and kind of go, okay, yes.
Had a different form of trolls back then too.
Yeah.
Yes. It was definitely a challenge trying to navigate it. Trying to find mentors was not an easy thing because they weren't advertising. I mean, now today we're seeing people everywhere showing their abilities, advertising, and I love it. I love seeing it because it's becoming the norm and accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not being crucified and shamed any longer for being who we are and using the abilities that we have, that everybody has, and being able to encourage others that, you have it too. You ever notice that little feeling in your stomach where you're saying, I just got a gut thing going on? There you go. You're doing it too, just a different way. And then they start to kind of stop giving you the hairy eyeball, as Ryan loves to say, and they start looking at you going, oh, well, I never really thought of it that way.
Right.
Yeah, you did. You know. But 20 years ago, you had to tread carefully and really kind of just tap the little bit with somebody and see what kind of reaction you're going to get. And then skate a little bit. Okay.
Right.
So I do have to say I was lucky because – oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I just was going to say I think, too, for me, it's like acceptance because it's difficult. It's wonderful with you people with you guys. You're my tribe now because we are all like-minded. But, again, I'm still in a world that is not like-minded like myself and you guys. So in terms of, this goes back to embracing change too, is I've just decided to accept them for who they are because I'm tired of just trying to change them in terms of just their thinking. And it doesn't matter. For some people, you know, everything is out there to show that this is real and we're real, and you know we're you know the mediums and healers and you know everything, and empaths and light workers. But some people just are never going to get it, I feel like. So that's okay. I've accepted that, and even though I can walk away from some of them, I can't others. Or at least I feel like I can't. So it's just a matter of accepting people for who they are, as long as they're not disrespectful. I mean, they're just there's people who aren't ever going to, you know, get it, I guess, or feel like they're open enough to understand or accept their own gift. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
you know,
even up where I live. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, even up where I live right now, anybody that has any abilities still keep it quiet up here because of the stigma that goes with it. There's a lot of people that are in hiding up here. You know.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I got my younger brother about when we were both about. He's 9 months younger than me. When we were about 18, 19 area, he and I used to astral project, and he always had better abilities than I did back then. And he and I have both kind of been on the same journey, but he takes a different path than I did. But he goes out and he drives a bus and he helps people every day that he works. And, you know, that's his way of doing it. But, yeah, for the most part, anybody up here, you don't want to even mention it, because they don't have any belief in it yet. So, makes it interesting.
Right. Well, that's why it's so important that we have this group, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
We can talk about anything and everything, and there's no judgment. There's only support and love, and it's wonderful. I'm so happy that I found you guys, honestly.
I'd have to say the same thing for me, too, because I've been running solo other than talking with my younger brother for the last 8 years, you know. And to find a group like this one that's so supportive and so encouraging, you know, and so patient, it's just a blessing. It's a big blessing for me. I feel like this is, you know, you find your soul family and then you feel like you're in heaven with it. So.
Yeah, it's definitely a divine intervention. I feel certain of that.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I know in my area, I don't know if it's like this where you are, Laura, because we live so close to one another, but out here it's pretty diverse. So I don't really get the, you know, it's not, there's certain spots that are really religious and other spots that are not, but there's it's just so diverse around here. So, I mean, I know even where my kids go to school, everything is accepted. So I don't, you know, come across a lot of that that you guys are experiencing. I did, however, in my family, you know, the ones that I thought when I first came out, I thought would, it's funny, the ones that I thought would be supportive were against it. And the ones that I thought, you know, would be against it were completely like, no way, that's so cool, you know. So it was pretty interesting. And I just, so I'm originally from Canada. I was born in Canada. So my Canadian family, they're completely, very Catholic. And so but we've always been, extremely close, just because I grew up there with them until age 5, and then I moved here to the States. So, when I first came out to one of my uncles and I let him know, look, this is what I do. I just want you to know. And, he said to me, oh, no, I don't believe in that. I believe in Jesus and the angels. And I laughed and I just said to him, no way. So do I, and it was, so that was my response to him. So, and I really meant that, though. I know I was being funny. That's just how my nature is. But I said that in a way, and it was just like it broke the ice. And he was like, oh, So, yeah. It was my, and of course I told him I love you, no matter what you believe in. I love you unconditionally. And I expect the same from you. We're family. We love one another. And so we might have different beliefs, but at the end of the day, we love each other. And, right. He may not agree with what I do, but I talk to him, pretty much every day. And, it wasn't like he just, disowned me or didn't talk to me. And if that would have been his choice, I would have been fine with that as well. It's okay. It's okay. Everybody has choices. And, and so I've accepted, some people may not, accept it. So, and that's okay.
Yeah. Exactly. To that point, like I had said, it just, you have to accept them for who they are. And if they get it, they do. And if they don't, then they don't. And doesn't mean you, especially family, it doesn't mean you love them any less. It's just, it is what it is. And
right.
That's it. Right.
So
and
I guess I completely.
And I think people, like, when your family and your friends want you to be real and just to be completely you, or would they rather have a miserable fake version who isn't themselves, isn't able to be real? I think most people would want to see you happy and be real and authentic and just be the best version that you can be, So I'm choosing to be authentic lately. I've just decided I'm just going to literally be myself, and I cut my hair, told everybody I'm a psychic medium, and I'm doing whatever I want at this point because I'm just going to be myself, because there's too many controlling people out there, too many people who want to try to put you in a box, and I've just decided I'm not going to do that. So that's that.
That's great, Laura. That's awesome.
And you're right. In Connecticut, it's the same way, Tina. There really isn't that many like super religious people, and I find actually in Connecticut it's almost like if you are very religious, you're almost the outcast in our area.
Exactly. So. Yep. Yeah. Same here in Massachusetts. So it's it's funny.
Yeah, and we do have a caller into the show tonight that I'm going to go ahead and bring on the air with us. Hi, 207. You're on the air with us. You have a comment?
Apparently, there's two 207s.
Oh, is that Kathy?
Okay.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
It's on Kathy.
Everybody's listening. All right.
Yes.
Penis.
What?
Are you bilocating?
Everybody hear the word penis. No, just kidding.
Well,
oh my goodness.
I'm sorry.
Kathy.
I'm like, let's see if we're going to wake him up. I actually said hot penis. Get it? Happiness?
Oh, Kathy.
Okay, so let's roll it, guys.
Goodness. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you guys?
Pretty good.
Good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I'd love to go right ahead with your conversation. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Have you been listening? Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, no, I was listening. Yeah, I was listening. It was very, very actually exciting. Who's that laughing in the background?
My brother just stepped in from the other room and said, "Did I just hear that right?"
Oh my goodness.
Hey, forgive me, I'm a Mainer.
Oh no, he's laughing.
Mainers talk that way. But all right, Tina's probably wanting to melt in her chair right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, if it's any consolation, Tina, I tried to warn you on your chat, but you did not come back at me, so I said, all right, here's her doomsday.
Oh my goodness. No, so
but,
go ahead, chime in, Kathy. So I know you've been through a lot in your life. What's the biggest thing that you can share with us about something inspirational, something that was so, a big change for you, where you released the fear and came out on the other end?
Well, I'm not going to say penis. I know that.
Oh, Kathy.
Sorry. Honestly, there was a lot of sorry. Had to say that again, Tina. Tina's going to call me tomorrow. What the hell are you doing?
That's okay. All this laughter is raising the vibration.
True.
So, no, it wasn't that. But there were several things that had happened in my life. And one of the most exciting things that ever happened in my life, truly, and I know this is going to sound odd, but when Tina came in it, my life changed.
Aww.
No, for real, my life changed. I never, ever had that person that I could always confide in, or because I'm a pretty close personality person. And when she came in my life, everything changed. I mean, we can't go 2 days without talking to each other. It doesn't matter how busy. It's just one of those things. And then having died before and coming back, that's also a big change. Just a lot of things, but it's kind of odd. Except for the Tina thing, I like to block everything out of my head. Does that sound weird?
No.
It's ironic,
not at all.
and I don't know why I'm that way. But
Well,
I
blocked out a lot of my memories of my childhood for years. It wasn't until I hit my early 20s that they started coming back. I couldn't even tell you what the inside of the house that I grew up in looked like because I had blocked out that much. Yeah.
Wow.
See, I did that with a lot of my childhood memories also. But they
the way
say
I
you
look
do
at
that. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Kathy.
They say you do that when you're trying to block out parts of your life that are too painful to deal with.
Well, and with my, that's where I come to accept my path, because my soul's contract when I came to this planet was to get pushed as far away from Source God as possible and to find my way back home. And so I can look back on everything that I've been through. And I've said it many times, my dad was my biggest abuser, but he was also my best teacher I ever had.
Wow.
And if you look at it that way, then you can kind of, look at it from a different, because if it hadn't been for everything that I went through, I wouldn't have the compassion. I wouldn't have the, I know what it's like to be abused. I know what it's like to be put down. And whatever I went through, all the struggles I went through, is something that I can turn around and help other people with now that have gone through the same thing. And that's the way I look at my past. Yeah, once I changed my perception, I played the victim for years. Close to 40 years I played the victim. But once I realized that, hey, I chose this, it was my choice, and I decided to come in to do this, then I began to understand that, hey, I did this for a reason. And the reason is so that I can, anybody that's been down a road similar to mine, I can help them get through it and try to make their life a little bit easier. And that's how I look at it now. But see, I was fortunate. When my dad passed away, the night before he passed away, he never believed in me or my abilities the whole time I was growing up. He thought it was all hogwash. But Spirit brought him, I was meditating one night, and Spirit brought him to me, and there's two beings on either side of us. And he explained to me everything that he had done in my life as a human. And on a soul level, he is just an incredibly bright, beautiful soul. But he explained that everything he took me through was to start me on my path and to bring me to this point. And that's when I could finally forgive him for everything that I had ever gone through, because it was my choice, if that makes sense.
It does, but, you must have, I'm just kind of feeling your pain level.
I have a very, very high pain tolerance.
I'm sensing that. How can you take so much pain that you went through in a childhood?
Well, my favorite motto when I was a kid, when I finally got old enough to realize it, was to defeat torture, you learn to love the pain. And if we were working or doing any, farm chores, I grew up on a hobby farm. We weren't allowed to quit working just because we got hurt. We didn't quit until the job is done. And it's actually why I'm on disability now, is because I have abused my body that way. I've been in pain for years, but I could push it away to where I don't feel it. And it really wrecked up my body. But it was also to change my path so I'd start doing this work instead of physical labor. So
I think you kind of have my attitude. It's a lot easier to forgive.
A lot of happiness.
It's a lot easier to forgive things. You don't have to totally forget, but if you forgive, the pain leaves.
I look at my life as being a reference book that I refer back to if I need to. And there's still a lot of trauma that I need to work through. There's still a lot of things I haven't cut loose yet. I mean, it took me a long time. I think it was like almost a year and a half, 2 years between the first time I talked to Jan and Lynn and Lori and Sue, and to me to make it back here. But I also credit Ryan for that one too. So
yes, yeah.
But it was a lot of releasing.
Emotional pain is tough.
Yeah, it is. But my father raised me to be a loner, not to rely on anybody else. And, I was great at stuffing pain. So.
But you're also great at forgiveness, I can see.
Well, I'm still working on that, It's like I said, it's just changing the perception.
But,
the forgiveness side is a journey to get through. Because a lot of times it's not about forgiving the other people, it's about forgiving ourselves and what we judged of ourselves based on the input of the others, whether it's abuse, verbal, emotional, all of those factors. So, and I'd have to say a lot of times when you get into this field, I've found that it's one of the harder steps is forgiving self. It's a whole lot easier to go, oh, yeah, I forgive my mom. She had this going on, or my dad, I can understand them. But the self, we're very, very judgmental of ourselves. And when we look in the mirror, all those things, all the labels everybody else has given us stand very strong in who we have identified ourselves to be. And when we start looking at each label and having to look at how it got there, it's easier to process the other people's parts than it is our own, and coming to that point of forgiving and accepting ourselves for that moment and how we reacted, what we did, how the outcome was, and these other parts, and how that label really doesn't belong to us. We've just kept it as part of our identity. And there again, it's a fear of losing identity because we get so comfortable with those labels of who everyone has told us we are. And it's very fearful to let those go. Like we're going to lose our identity if we don't have those labels, not realizing that we have others that we haven't really seen. And sometimes getting into that isolation, whether it's the town you live in, the job, the family, it's an opportunity. It feels terrible being isolated and feeling alone and so separated. But at the same time, it's an opportunity to get to know yourself in a way that there's no other labels being added to the list you've already got. But it allows you an opportunity to start looking at those labels and go, am I really that? Or is that what somebody has helped me to think that's who I am? And if I let it go, am I going to be okay? Is the change in myself when I release that label going to be good enough for the new label that I see myself as?
I love the
For me,
that
was the hardest. Go ahead.
Oh, my goodness.
I was just going to say, for me, that's been the hardest part of the path.
Yeah.
The way you said it totally described it in a nutshell.
Oh, it definitely.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was so well.
That was very well stated.
Very well, yeah.
You know, I've come to find that, you know, if we really look at change in our lives and the fears that hold us back, when you start to look at your own physical body and go, okay, so I'm not the 18-year-old hot chick with the tight abs and the bubble butt going on now. Okay, so I'm a little more cheeky and a little bit of this here and a little bit of that there. But when you start looking at it, all of the physical attributes that have changed in our lives are part of our life story. Every mark, every scar, every internal wound, every external wound is a representation of the road we've traveled. And were we afraid when we got on the bicycle at 4 years old with them training wheels? Yes, but we did it. We got the training wheels off, and we survived. And we may have scraped our knees, and we still got a scar from it. But we look at it down the road and go, you know what, that's a pretty cool scar. You know what I did on that one? You know, and you start noticing that the fears of what those challenges were just, if we could just silence them for the moment and take the step, knowing that change is always present.
I think I have a little bit of rye.
More doors.
I think I have a little bit of rye and brushing off on me. You know what my biggest fear is?
What?
Seriously? Looking at myself in the mirror, naked.
Yeah, that's real, Kathy. I have the same thing, Kathy. No, I'm serious. It's hard to look. That's actually a very real thing. Like I had my child at 19, and while the other girls had their hot, sexy bodies, I had a C-section, huge scar, and I gained so much weight during my pregnancy. I look like Freddy Krueger all over my stomach. It's bad even to this day. I don't. When I get out of the shower, I do not look in the mirror at all. And I've actually had Ryan. It's funny you bring him up. I won't even show I won't even show my husband my full body. And Ryan's like, show your husband your body. You look good. Stop it. But it's that's why now that's why earlier I had said on the show, I'm just embracing who I am. Just be authentic.
Yes.
Screw it, man. Be
you. Your body's, your soul picked that body. It thought it was going to be the best damn body to serve its purpose. And it was going to bring about changes in your life that was going to serve you the best. And that, for me, was one of my aha moments that really started to allow me to love the physical image as well as the rest of what everybody else saw of me. Because I did the same thing. I remember as a kid, I would see my mother get dressed, and I would see her stomach, and I thought, oh, my God, please don't let my stomach end up like that if I have children. My mom had 5 children, very big babies, And then here I ended up with the same boobs and the same belly as my mother, and I had to go, whoa, I'm here.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, the girls aren't as perky. The stomach has the LA freeways on it, All right, here we are. And you're dealing with the stigma from other people going, oh, well, aren't you a little curvy thing, and going, yeah. But you know what? Even that was a challenge of change and overcoming my own fears, because I had feared that I was going to end up having those same traits my mother had from having to have children. And then it took me a little while to finally go, you know what, why am I so afraid of it? These are my story. Every mark on my body, every sag, every little extra piece of me is a part of the story of my life that I've lived. And if my soul picked this body out of all the bodies it could have picked, even the waifs on the runway, she had the opportunity. She picked this one.
Oh, I love
she thought that this was going to be so valuable. Why am I looking at it like, oh, my God, I need to, be wearing the muumuu gowns here, okay, and be nice? No, I need to go, you know what? My soul went, yeah, that's it. That's the one that's going to nail this. Then I started looking at it and going, this is my story being shown in a physical form. And the more that I can love it and love the journey that I've been on, then any other future change and fear that starts to hold me back, I know I can walk through it. Because on the other side of it is going to be another new me that comes out of it. And with all the markings of the journey that it's traveled is going to be right there with me, reflecting it to the rest of the world.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's something
beautiful.
Something that's really cool that I want to bring up for people who are listening, who are very self-conscious about their body. So where I live in Connecticut, it is a little bit cutthroat in a sense, where the women who are curvier, they really don't tend to show. They hide their bodies, and the ones who are thin and have the perky butt and the perky boobs, they're really showing it. So I'm curvier, and I have some issues and stuff that I'm trying to work on with my self-esteem, which I'm working on it. But I ended up for my honeymoon going to Florida, and we went to this place called John's Pass. It's in Madeira Beach. And the women there, it was so empowering. The women there, all shapes and sizes, skinny, tall, big, medium, they wore what they wanted. They dressed up, and they all just flaunted what they had, some of them in sweatpants. And it was just, I've never felt like more confident to put on the strapless dresses and to just dress up and be me and feel comfortable in my skin, to see other people embracing it. So what I want to say about that is I came back with this idea of embracing it so that there are other people like me in my type of body can see me embracing it in letting my arms hang out, letting, you know, if I'm wearing shorts, letting my flabby legs hang out. Like, people will feel like they can get rid of the leggings, get rid of the baggy sweatshirts in the summer and just be free. So sometimes when you just allow yourself to be you and embrace your flaws, with the rabbit ears, flaws, because they're not really flaws, it unlocks, and I go back to the prison, it unlocks somebody's prison, and they're able to be themselves and have fun and just enjoy life and not have to worry about all of that extra BS.
Yeah.
To feel that way would be amazing.
Makes sense.
It
That's
really
very
would.
empowering.
That's right.
Sure
and
is.
you know what? She's right.
Mhm.
She really is right.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, we just got to learn to feel empowered.
And
because
it's
you know what?
like even...
It really don't matter if you think about it. If somebody's going to love you, they're going to love you for who you are.
Yep.
It's not going to matter. You know, how do you ladies feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, like, I look at Ryan, who just passed away, and he would always say, like, he wasn't very confident. He would always say, like, he was balding at the top. He was the first one to make fun of himself. But when he passed away, all of these women came out of the woodwork. He was so attractive. Oh, I had the biggest crush on him. And it's like, you know, he's over there like, oh, my God, all these women were attracted to me. I can't even believe this. But it's like, you don't even, it doesn't matter what you look like. There's a lot of people out there who still think you're attractive, even if you think you're the biggest garbage truck walking around. Like, people think you're hot. People think you're sizzling hot. So let that be a lesson.
Think about it. No, for real.
It's true.
But,
it's so true.
But didn't he go through like a divorce or something that probably kind of messed him up a little bit?
Yeah.
He was divorced, correct?
Maybe.
That's just common, common sense. That's why I say that. But no, and a lot of people, after you go through divorce, you don't think that's a normal thing to go through.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't think
It's true.
You think it's a fault of yours. And I don't care who you are, you're going to think that way. You know what I mean? That's you know, how I feel.
Yeah.
You know, what is it about myself that caused things to go bad? You know, that type of thought. That's just normal for most.
From a male perspective, though, I'll tell you right now, I don't care how attractive somebody is. If they don't have a beautiful soul and a beautiful heart, they're ugly, you know?
Yeah.
And I've actually had very hot-looking girlfriends when I was younger. And, you know, if they were with a real negative, bitchy attitude, you know, I didn't want to be around them. It didn't matter what they looked like. The heart and soul mean more than anything else to me. So.
100%.
And that's what carries through the marriage, even when your body does go through those changes, like after kids, you might put on extra pounds, you have stretch marks, you have sagging skin or crow's feet or anything. Like, it's the soul that counts. Everybody ages.
Yep.
Right.
That's true. And then when you get to the point, it's like me, I mentally blocked myself out from life with that.
Oh, why?
It's hard to explain, but I physically did. I mentally blocked myself out from that type of life. And
you know, Kathy, there's someone out there that's going to see how beautiful and attractive you are and love you for just who you are.
I mean, it's not that I don't get opportunities, because I do. Right, you know what I mean, but I emotionally blocked blocked myself out.
Well, it's a survival mechanism, though. You know, after getting rejected or going through that so many times, you finally say enough's enough, and you kind of pull into yourself because you don't want to go through it anymore.
Right. I don't want to see any more negativity.
Mhm.
That's my phobia.
I thought you were going to say the thing you came in saying.
Oh, no. I didn't say that other word. I added it. But
oh my goodness.
Speaking of happiness.
Oh God.
Tina's gonna want to kill me. I can feel her vibrations right now.
Well, you know, you've actually changed me for the rest of my life because I'll never be able to hear that word happiness again without laughing.
Yes!
And people are going to wonder what's wrong with me. I'm going to go, nothing.
Hey, Tina, we've been out before.
So I have a question for everybody.
Roll.
I have a question for everybody since we're talking about changes and fears. And we've addressed some of the bigger ones, all of us.
Yep.
What about, is there a fear of heights or water or spiders or fire or any of those? And how have you worked through it? I'll share mine, and we'll go around the table to everybody because I think this will help some of the listeners on how to work with something even on a smaller level. So for me, mine is fire. It's past life related. Didn't know that to begin with. I thought it was just from the house next door to us burning down when I was a kid. But it's always been fire, especially open fires. But to work with it and overcome it, I have a wood-burning fireplace that's my heat for the winter, so I can't avoid fire.
Okay.
And I started using fire ceremonies as a way to do large types of healing work.
That's
for
great.
Groups of people, like I did for Ryan Sendoff. So those were ways that I ended up incorporating fire into my life in order to overcome my fear of the item itself.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Who would like to go next? Anybody else have one out there that we can share in our last few minutes before we have to wrap up?
Well, I have a fear. It sounds ridiculous, but I have a fear of tidal waves. I grew up every summer at the beach, and I lived in the water. I still love the water. And ended up on swim teams and all that, but I would have nightmares about tidal waves, and I have a feeling it came from while I was in the ocean, these big waves that just overpowered me, and I would end up like just getting crushed underneath the water and then ending up on the shore like a beached whale, just, because it's just oh my goodness. But have I gone over that? Not really. I'm not, other than what I just described, I'm not sure where that came from. But I'm still, it's not, I feel very adventurous. I'll still go back out in the water, and I'll still tackle these big waves, but then I turn around and have these nightmares about, just dying with the tidal waves. If that, I don't know how that makes sense or where it came from. Maybe I'll have to do more research on that. Yeah. And then the other one is spiders. It's funny you brought that up. So this came from when I was young. I I don't know. It's probably like around 10. I was in bed and I had a nightgown on, and I wake up. I feel this, which was a spider, crawling up my leg and crawled up all the way up to my stomach, and I'm paralyzed with fear as this thing is crawling underneath my, nightgown. But I got the courage to smack it, right? So I smacked my stomach, and lo and behold, there's this spider. It was huge, and there's the yellow guts. It was just disgusting. And since then, oh my gosh, I hate spiders. Hate them.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And then
You're not
they
out of the
say
ordinary.
that you swallow, and then they say like you swallow, a couple spiders a year or something. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what?
I've heard that.
So, there you go.
Yeah.
I haven't overcome that either.
For me, this is Laura speaking, and I've always had a fear of aliens, literally ever since I was a kid. And, it's like pretty irrational. Could be from a past life, but one of the things, talking about it had helped quite a bit. And one of the things, I had actually talked to a therapist at one point. I was going to a therapist, and my husband at the time was just my boyfriend. He was going to a therapist as well. And this other guy was, like, really cool. But my therapist, I talked to her about it, and she just kind of looked at me like I was nuts for having that fear, like, get the straight jacket kind of thing. Like, she was totally closed-minded.
Wow.
So, yeah, and I talked to my husband, his therapist, about it, and he was really cool. Like, he would have fit in with this crew so well. He had said, well, like, what was a time where you felt complete loss of control? And then I started going into a lot of the medical stuff, but then we got back to a time where I was actually sexually abused as a child. And that's actually where it stemmed from, because having the fear of somebody coming into my bedroom, taking me, losing complete control, and doing God knows what to me, and no one being able to save me. So sometimes it does help to talk about your fears and then kind of find out where they're coming from. So it felt really good to have somebody be able to tell me why I had that. And once I was able to come to that conclusion that it was because of the sexual abuse that I had that fear, I was able to completely get over it. I'm not really like super scared of it anymore, because I know where it stems from. So that can be really helpful, talking to someone and getting to the bottom of it.
If it's any consolation, just for the heck of it, Google UFOs, Loring Air Force Base. We actually, it's about 10 miles as the crow flies from me.
Wow.
In the 70s, we actually had sightings here that were documented by the federal government.
They're all over. There's that movie on Netflix called something like Unexplained, maybe, and it talks about all the UFO sightings that have been documented. And I guess once all these documents were released, this one man just, he made a documentary about it. I mean, there's Roswell, and they're there.
So, don't find your fear that unnoted.
Well, you know what?
Reasons.
It's really funny. Ryan had told me before he passed on one of the shows that my child was actually a Pleiadian. So I was kind of like, well, I can't really be scared of aliens when my kid comes from that world. So and then I found
you
out.
should look it up, Laura. You should definitely look it up, because they're light things. They're not all bad. There's many that are good, and they're here to help us.
That was also a huge breakthrough for me, is to hear that the majority of them are good, and there are some bad ones, but the good ones protect against those. So that was really good to hear.
That's actually where my path started out. where I grew up here, we used to see UFOs all the time. And when I was about 8 years old, we had a big, like almost an oval fireball over my garage about 11, 12 o'clock at night. And
wow.
I was fascinated by it. And the funny thing is, I was sitting shaking so bad on my bed that my mattress was jumping up and down, but I couldn't break my eyes away from it. And I had telepathic communication going on between me and them. And as soon as I told my older brother to get my parents, that's when it went up in the sky and disappeared. And I found out later that it's the Arcturians that I work with, and that's where my healing energy that I've brought in with me this time comes from. And they actually have been watching over me my whole life. So
Arcturians are supposed to be the highest evolved and the greatest of all the aliens as far as supporting us, Earthlings, and the human race. I love Arcturians. Like, I feel like I've always been interested in them.
I've actually, in my dream time, well, I don't look at dreams as being dreams. I look at it as going to different realities or different dimensions. But I've been on board ships back when I was living down in Sedona. I could tell you stories about some of the things that I've seen on them. And it's amazing how many different types of beings there are that are all working together. It's incredible.
And isn't Sedona like a hot spot for them?
Oh, yeah. I could tell you stories about watching them. You ever want to see something funny, watch the U.S. military take jets and try to catch them. It is comical to watch because they'll dart across the sky in one direction and the jets start coming after them. They'll just turn around and go the other direction. The jets have to turn around. But every time we would see them out in Sedona, it was probably take them about 15, 20 minutes to scramble the jets. So, and it would come through, they would let us know ahead of time in the channel, and so we could be out watching. So it was quite an adventure.
Wow.
I saw a lot of them when I was out there.
Wow, that's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy that you had mentioned that, Kevin, that they had come and you felt like it was kind of like an upgrade, because I used to see them when I was in a really bad position. With my ex, like, we would literally be fighting constantly, and I'd be outside and I would actually see UFOs, and it would scare the bejesus out of me because I already had the fear. So I almost wonder if, it was maybe an upgrade or they were watching out for me. I don't know, but that's crazy you said that. That's crazy.
I was told that we each have like a monitor ship that watches over us. And that you can actually communicate. A monitor ship is what they would call them. And it's your team of, like with me, it would be the Arcturians that if I go outside and look far enough, and they'll show themselves to me, And it's not all the time that happens, but, it's quite the world.
Yeah.
You communicate with them?
They're always around, but that's one of the things that I've been working on getting back. When I would see them, I used to, if you could send blue energy from your throat chakra to the ships, if I'd see one sitting up in the sky just in one position, just to confirm that what I was seeing was real, I'd ask them to move, and they would.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So interesting. That's very exciting.
That article here about what happened at Loring Air Force Base, it was before my time, but it's all documented. You may all want to read it sometime because it's quite interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And it's a government document.
Yeah.
So
it'll be interesting when the public realizes they've... Okay, guys, we've got 90 seconds, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. I am so glad everybody joined in tonight. Tina, Laura, Kevin, Kathryn, and Kathy. And on our chat, we had Lynn and Dennis pop in. Lots of fun tonight. It was a very, very good discussion. I'm so glad we've launched this show. And I want to remind everybody, we have a show Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday, we do free readings. Please check out the Sacred Embers shows listed on Blog Talk. We've also got on Facebook our Sacred Embers page, as well as a Sacred Embers group that we invite you all to become members, those who enjoy the information we share tonight, as well as our other shows Monday through Thursday. And also, we have a fabulous website if you want to connect to any of the Sacred Members team to have a one-on-one session. The shows during the week are only a snippet of what our team is able to provide to you. Those are only little bits that we're able to give on airtime. So please, scope out the website and book your appointment. We'd love to service you. So fabulous to have you guys tonight. I want to thank the panel for joining in. It was a fabulous discussion. We did 2 hours of great information tonight, guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Of course.
Hey, love you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you too.
Everybody have a great night.
Have a great night, everyone.
Good
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.